So what we're going to do here is we're going to, talk about where the mining is right now, and then we're going to have just some hints and beginning to lead into what I hope this will continue in the future, looking at the future of mining, especially in this state. We'll talk about mineral resources, we'll talk about permitting, we'll talk about the things that go into trying to make a mine operate, and then, focusing on some of the new technologies as well as educating the next generation. So I'm going to start out with three things. I'm going to start out first with the importance of minerals and why we're all here and why mining is such a critical role in this transition or this evolution to energy. I first want to start out because I found out that a lot of my geology colleagues get confused by the term minerals. And the term minerals, as we've used it throughout this conference, but especially what we're going to do here, comes from the 1872 mining law that actually says that minerals are essentially any commodity. So therefore, we do talk about oil and gas and coal and other things like that, aggregates, as actual minerals. And that is what we do here in the United States, and a lot of the world has followed suit. But you can pretty much substitute commodity with minerals. And so the current energy evolution or transition, whatever you'd like to use, is going to put more and more pressures on the mining industry and on our supply chains. New energy devices, from the cars to turbines, they need a greater proportion of minerals than ever before. My next slide will demonstrate this. The production of simple minerals such as graphite, lithium, and cobalt, they're going to increase by over 500,000% in order to produce the batteries and the transmissions and all of the other things that go into this new evolution. To achieve 100% renewable energy will mean that just in copper production over the next 20 years, we will have to mine more copper than what we have mined in the entire span of mankind. And so start thinking about that and start thinking about these great, huge mines that we have that are producing that copper. But that is a reality we cannot escape. And that copper has to come online fast because that's what goes into all of the transmission lines. And so with new forms of energy, we are relying more and more on minerals, and especially what we're calling these critical minerals. So how can New Mexico fit into this picture? That's what we will start to address today, and I hope we can continue these discussions in the future. Here is a slide that very easily, shows this is from the International Energy Agency. So this is international. Here's the minerals that are required for an electric car. These are the minerals here, and that this is the amount of minerals that's required for a conventional car. 6 times the amount of minerals have to go into an electric car. And then when we start looking at power generation, just onshore wind turbines is going to require 9 times the amount of minerals as natural gas plants. So this is a huge drain on our supply, and it means we've got to get this production up and running quickly. At the same time, mining not only has to be sustainable, but we've got to do it in a very eco-friendly way. This is just one of the tailings in Georgetown that have been reclaimed, and we've got to not only take care of the mines as we open them up, we got to take care of these legacy issues as well. So that's kind of the point that, just give you why these minerals are so important. Now, what do we have in New Mexico? And fortunately, I've been around quite a while, and I've been studying this for all of my career. New Mexico, surprisingly enough, is the oldest mining area in the continent, in the United States. The Native Americans were mining turquoise from Cerrillos Hills near Santa Fe since the 1600s, if not before. We can actually use technology, stable isotopes, and chemical compositions, and we can trace the turquoise from this deposit to both the east and the west coast. That's how far in 1600 they traded this material. And what was happening on the east coast later on in the 1600s? When the Pilgrims landed. And then when the Spanish came, they settled, then Mexico took over New Mexico, and one of the earliest gold rushes was here in the old Plasters District in 1828, long before the California gold rush. So we've had resources, they've been exploited for a very long time. And so what are we talking about when we say these critical minerals? Well, these critical minerals are very dependent upon, they are essential to our economic security, our national defense. They are a high risk of supply demand. They also have trade exposure. They are, if we were to stop any one of them, it's a choke point. It ends up being a break in our supply chains. And most of these critical minerals are coming from overseas and not from very friendly countries. And so what I've done here is I very simply have taken a very simple periodic table and color-coded the critical minerals, and then I've colored it by where they're found in New Mexico. I have colored it whether red is an element producing in New Mexico, blue is an element that used to produce. That means that we had mines in the past, production. Green means that we found them. This light green, which really should have been a yellow, is that we find it in New Mexico in trace amounts. I doubt that we will see any of those minerals produced in the state. Now, I've also shown in gray what was on the critical minerals list originally, just so that I feel like we still need to study these particular commodities because they may come back on that critical minerals list. Also, I want to point your attention to copper. The U.S. Geological Survey does not consider copper as a critical mineral, but the Department of Energy has added copper as a critical materials. And so copper, as I've said, is so important, we are considering it as a critical mineral. What I've done here is I've just shown very simply where we have active mines and exploration sites. And this is from DJ and Albert's division, the Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department data, because they keep track of the mine registrations. And I also have not shown all of the aggregate production. Aggregate is shown here in this orange color, and I have not shown all of the aggregate pits that are in the Estancia Valley that are supporting the production of all those wind turbines. You must have aggregate in order to have a wind turbine. And that is one of the largest wind farms in the country. So you can imagine the amount of aggregate that is going into that production. And then over here on this side, I've just simply taken a subset of this in that I've added exploration sites. Not all of these exploration sites are in permitting, so they're not on DJ's database yet, but they are where I know companies are working and starting to look at, in particular, critical minerals. So this gives you an idea of what's going on in the state. Here I pretty much have shown the mining district map. The green is metal mining. The pink is industrial minerals. Yellow is uranium. All this is green. This is uranium here. And then over here I have all of the coal fields. And even our coal fields are turning out that even some of our coals may have potential for critical minerals besides just burning as energy. So we have a wealth of mineral resources. And so I take this data. I can take the production data, and I'm going to go through these very quickly. This is copper from 1882 to 2023. On this side of the graph, I show tonnage, and that is the bars. And then on this side, I show actual dollars in terms of production. And the point I want to get you to look at from these graphs, and you can study them, I mean, there's a lot of history in these graphs. We can see upticks during the First World War and the Second World War and certainly the Cold War. But notice how we are steadily decreasing, especially in copper since 2012. But in the other commodities, you'll see that we have a decrease since the 1980s in terms of production in New Mexico. This means we are losing our mining industry. Silver, same thing. Gold, same thing. Silver. And even in potash. Now, potash goes into fertilizers. You can't grow anything in this world without adding fertilizers. I'm sorry, it ain't going to happen. And potash is one of the three major fertilizers. And once again, we're seeing a dramatic decrease in production, not only in actual tonnages, but also in price. Coal. I mean, that we are slowly shutting down our coal industry. We have 3 mines operating in the state at this time. And so what has happened is that the federal government has recognized this. When Trump was in the administration at first, he started by defining critical minerals. The Biden certainly added funding to these programs. And because of our experience here at the Bureau, we've been able to capitalize on this, and we've been able to get funding from the DOE, looking at coal and adjacent strata up here. But then we've also gotten a lot of projects from the USGS, and we have involved industry. The Navajo tribe gave us a permit to sample coals on their land and other rocks as well. Industry, the Navajo Transition Energy Corporation has allowed us to go to their mine at Navajo and sample. In these other areas with the USGS, we have the companies that are doing exploration here in the Cornudas and up here in the Guyanas. These companies are very much engaged with us. They're providing data, not dollars, but they're providing data. We have Drill Corps over here at the Blackhawk District, cobalt nickel area. We have a poster out in the wall. A lot of the beach placer rare earth deposits are here in the San Juan Basin. There's another poster out there that you can take a look at. And we have cooperated with the adjacent states. Our porphyry copper deposit, where we're looking at critical minerals in those deposits, it is in conjunction with Arizona. And then we have put together a program between California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas to look at the potential of moly tungsten deposits. And out of this program, we have more than 24 students, some of them are here in the room, that have been working on these projects and are funded with it. So we are engaging the next generation, and they have done exceptionally great work, thankfully, because I can't handle all this by myself. And many of these have internships with the mining companies during the summer, and then the companies and the consultant firms hire these students. My students are getting hired. And as I said, we have the collaboration with the mining companies. I take all of this data together, and we put together mineral resource potential maps. And I've shown here, this is our rare earth. We need to update these periodically. These actually were before COVID. This is where rare earths are found in the state, blue being the high. And then this is copper. And I've shown uranium, because you can't talk about energy. You've got to have something that provides a base load. And we have some of the largest uranium deposits in the state. Lithium, just the potential and where the lithium occurs. Tellurium, another critical mineral. And so you got a hint on what we have in the state and what we're working on. And we are doing the geochemistry, the geophysics, and the mapping of these areas. But now let's get out of the box. Let's start thinking. Engineers are particularly hard to get out of that box, but let's think out of the box. What can we look at in the vision for the future of mining? Actually, Dr. Webb started to suggest this yesterday, is that let's start thinking about going into the subsurface and extracting those minerals without traditional mining. We can call that whatever you'd like. I don't know what term's going to come. It certainly is in situ mining, leaching, recovery. We have that already. We are, most of the uranium production right now in the United States is coming from in situ recovery, but we also are able to recover copper. BHP is recovering copper at San Manuel in Arizona by in situ recovery. But I think we even want to go further than that. We want to actually take the technology that they're using in the petroleum industry in fracking and in the drilling that they're doing, and actually go into these zones in the subsurface and maybe break up that rock, just like we do in fracking, and be able to go and extract it more efficiently. And so that's where we come with, in non-invasive mining, targeted mining, laparoscopic mining. These techniques can be developed. Let's think about it. Will they work? Who knows? But if we don't think about it, we'll never get there. And can they be developed easily? We're still going to have to do the characterization that I'm good at, but then we may even be able to partner with carbon sequestration. When we take that ore out, we might be able to put carbon back in there. And these are going to be smaller deposits with shorter lifetimes, very little footprint on the ground. Yes, there's still a lot of questions to be answered. What will we do with aquifers? All that kind of thing. Another thing we can be thinking about is robotics. They are using robots in some of the uranium mines in Saskatchewan, up in Canada, and they are successfully keeping the miners out of that radioactive environment and using the robots. So it will take time. It will be a challenge. We've got to all work together. And this panel, hopefully, we will start by understanding what's going on today and where we go into the future. And so I don't know that I really have to recap. We have resources in New Mexico. We have a vision for the future, and we're training some of our workforce. And we've got to rethink how mineral resources are going to be mined in the future. So I challenge all of you to start thinking about that. And with that, I will turn it over to DJ.